It's 12:15 where I am, so let's get started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Peter Till, and I am an alum from Wake Forest University. And today I'll be chairing the session 8 from this conference that we've been having, the 9th Asian Pacific Forum on Translation and Intercultural Studies. I have the honor and the privilege to chair this session 8 on the ITS's 10th anniversary, the Interpreting and Translation Studies program at Wake Forest University, where a lot of our presenters today have graduated from. So I know a lot of familiar faces and some people I don't know. But I would like to thank Wake Forest for this opportunity. I'm just honored to be able to chair this session. And I'm really looking forward to these presentations. So we're going to start with Devin Gilbert. He's unfortunately not going to be with us today, but he sent us his presentation. Devin is a graduate also from Wake Forest University. He also did some of his education at Kent State University, but right now Devin is a teacher, a researcher, pretty much anything you could want him to be, he does basically. And he is also an associate professor at Utah State University. He works mainly with Spanish into English, but he also does Portuguese into English as well. And his presentation today, if any of you are Lord of the Rings fans, this will appeal to you. His title is Solving Terminology Management Pain Points, One Term-Based Management Software System to Rule Them All. So without further ado, let's play his presentation.
Devin Gilbert. I am currently teaching at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. I head up all of their translation and interpreting courses there. And I'm a Wake Forest alumnus, so I'm really excited to be presenting at this conference at Wake Forest. And I'm also a member of the Center for Research and Innovation in Translation and Translation Technology at Kent State University. Might be better known by their acronym CRIT, C-R-I-T-T. And I'm going to be presenting on term-based management today, and kind of the different software tools that are out there to be used for this and what they lack, and maybe what their advantages are. And also going to be talking about kind of where I would like the future of term-based management to go, specifically in the context of translation projects. And so first I'll just go over the scope of kind of what this presentation will cover, and then I'll kind of give some anecdotes of term-based pain points, terminology management pain points, and look at the current software solutions that are out there and maybe the issues with them, and kind of try to identify the best available solution out there. And then kind of looking towards the future, talk about what is missing still here and what the future could hold, or what I would hope the future would hold, I guess. And so first off, just briefly to define terminology management, it's, to put it tritely, what I would call just how to refer to stuff. So within specific fields, within specific enterprises or even companies or organizations, there needs to be a standardized way to refer to certain things. And if they're multilingual organizations, then across different languages, this becomes important. And, why is it important? Mostly so that you can avoid term confusion, and in translation so that you can avoid inflated costs and errors and basically pain points. And when I talk about terminology management here, I'm talking about implementing it not just at the stage of translation, which is often the case where it's treated as an afterthought, but implementing it at the stage of conception and authoring, and carrying that through all the way to localization and translation in all the different languages that might be needed. And so it should be something that starts at the organization level from the very beginning before they ever get to the stage of translation. And so the scope of this presentation, this really isn't a hardcore empirical study or anything like that. It's basically me looking at different solutions out there and whining about them. And so it's also kind of just trying to make a laundry list of what I would look for in a terminology management solution. And it's by no means an exhaustive list of the solutions that are out there. I would actually love it if we were able to go through this presentation and someone shoots me an email and says, hey, but it sounds like you haven't heard of this tool. I would love it if that were to happen. I'm sure there's tools out there that I haven't been made aware of yet. And so looking at software tools to manage terminology, I'm thinking back to one of my courses in Wake Forest where we were introduced to multi-term. And honestly, the biggest challenges with terminology management is access, who gets to add terms, and then later who vets the terms. Having sophisticated access permissions is really important. And also, with a tool like multi-term, it's only really accessible as a database on a server, or a lot of times just as a local file. And so that creates access problems when you have a file bouncing around instead of a centralized location for it. And then a huge challenge is integration. And so, Trato Studio, formerly SDL, now RWS, has its own file format for term bases. MemoQ has its own file format. And this might be it is a file format that just isn't usable in authoring applications. And we want our terminology to be used not just at translations, the stages of translation, but also during authoring and at the organization itself. And then there's the problem of, okay, if it's a term base that's available that way to the organization for their authoring tools, can it be integrated into different CAT tools? And that's really where this becomes a headache. And especially if you want it to be used in multiple different CAT tools and not just one CAT tool. And so we're looking at terminology management in the context of translation projects, but we're also thinking about what happens before translation and after translation. And so this comes from, I think, John Benjamin's handbook on terminology research, where a lot of the research that's been done, a lot of the efforts that have been done in terminology in years past have focused way too much on terminology just from the perspective of a terminologist. But they're not looking at how it might be used in quality assurance for the translation process, which is, one of the big arguments for terminology work. We want to save money during translation, and we want to make translation easier and higher quality as well. And so I have a good friend who works for a very large language service provider. And he oversees, among other things, their terminology, kind of the terminology management efforts with that language service provider. And the age-old problem that I always heard about from him with their clients was that the client would come with an Excel, spreadsheet. And then he would have to convert that into the file format that they used, and I think they used MemoQ, and so he would have to convert it into the file format that MemoQ uses. But then the client would want to see their terminology again. And maybe at this point, there have been several translation projects. Lots of terms have been added through MemoQ. And then he needs to export it to an Excel file again. And then the client will look at that Excel file, and essentially they'll try to put a lot of garbage in it. Most clients aren't understanding of what is a term, what is an entry. And so they'll put things like generic words like the and in the term base. They'll put duplicate entries in. So there's a term that's already in there, and it's in there with an already established entry, and they'll throw a duplicate in. And they do all this on Excel, and then they try to give it back to him, and then he has to change the format again, but he has to either leave all that garbage in there that they put in there, or he has to take a ton of time to go through and clean it. The translators then end up getting something that has all of these duplicate terms, unwanted terms in there, and then the client's upset. And it might have been the client's fault the entire time, where the client perhaps put a deprecated term in the term base, and then they're mad that the deprecated term shows up in their translated content. And so basically all of these file conversions, the client accessing the term base in a local file that's not the actual way that the term base is stored for the translators, this is kind of the headache that is kind of a perennial problem. And so there are different software tools that, try to avoid these problems. And there's some that are desktop, and there's a lot that are web-based. I'm not going to focus so much on the desktop software tools, because I think we need to transition towards web-based tools. Desktop tools, I don't think, are the answer, because you have to download and maintain the software, and it's not just something that's constantly accessible in its most updated format online. A lot of these are outdated, have poor user experience and user interface. For example, multi-term would fit into that category. They don't integrate well with other tools most of the time, mostly because, they're very outdated. And then there's the issue of, clients using Excel as a terminology management solution, which that's not what Excel was ever designed for. It's very hard to maintain a good data structure with Excel that is powerful enough for good terminology management. And so we really don't want to use any of these tools. So let's focus on some of the web-based tools that are out there. And I'm just going to quickly go through the tools. You can look these up on your own time and kind of see if you agree with my evaluation, but these are the issues that I see with each of these web-based tools. And some of this, might be coming from me only using the demo version of the tool and not having enough experience with it. And so there's that caveat. But there's, for example, this tool EvoTerm. And I found that it didn't seem to have a ready way to integrate. You couldn't IC export from this to, for example, term-based exchange format, TBX format. The UX and the user experience left a lot to be desired, and I didn't love that it's using incorrect terminology about terminology management. So, for example, source language and target language. Since term bases are multilingual assets, it's not like a translation memory where it's only two languages. I don't think source and target are really appropriate terms. You might have organization dominant language or something like that. And then, all of the other offshoot languages that an organization might use, but source and target, I don't agree with that terminology. There's this other tool, FlashTerm Global. From their demo, I saw that they had actually a really nice user interface. And the only issue that I could really see was integration. I'm not sure about the import and export capabilities of it from the demo version. And my only question here is, can it integrate with different authoring tools and with different translation management systems? Then we have tools like QTerm, which is of course MemoQ's solution, and the problems here mostly come from the fact that it's specific to MemoQ, which are the same problems with multi-term. And it's actually not included in just a regular version of MemoQ. It's only with a web MemoQ instance on a MemoQ server. And I'm not sure that it can integrate with authoring tools, whatever they might be. And from what I remember other people saying, that the edit and review control procedures on QTerm left a lot to be desired. The good thing about it is web-based, and clients and translators and project managers can all access the term base from the same kind of portal, which is nice. I found this solution and demoed it. You can actually use it for free and try it out. It's this domain termbases.eu, and really easy to create term bases here. The user interface was very, very intuitive, and it was also very powerful. And so you might see on the screen there, just above the subject field, it's got a simple or advanced toggle, and that advanced toggle will open up a lot of the term level fields, and it has very good access and review permissions that you can set, and it exported to term-based exchange format very easily and quickly. It seemed like a very nice tool. I just wonder about how it can integrate with translation management systems and other authoring tools. Then we had this web-based tool, Term Wikipro. I thought the user interface was very hard to navigate, did not make a lot of sense. They're also, saying things like source term, target term, source language, which I don't think is, just good terminology for terminology management. I tried to import a TBX file and it didn't work, so that was frustrating, and I'm not sure how well it integrates with different translation management systems or authoring tools. And the last one I looked at that really seemed to be a winner was TermWeb. And it seems to it plays really well for sure with translation management systems like Trados, XTM, and MemoQ. And it's all stored from a centralized database, and then they have already built integrations with those translation management systems that I just mentioned. And it's got different interfaces that make it easy to search and view terms, but also to edit terms in a very intuitive ways. You can see on this window to the right for multiple languages. And so that's honestly what I found to be the best solution, because it had a good user interface. It can import and export to many different formats, and it has good access controls like some of the other tools do, like Term Bases and Term Wiki. But the biggest thing is that it can for sure integrate with translation management systems, and also with content management systems like Congri and others. And so if you're looking for something that can be used by authors and translators and content creators, I think TermWeb seems to be the best solution. And so thinking beyond kind of the current landscape of software tools for terminology management and integration into the quality assurance workflow for both authoring and translation and localization, in my opinion, what's missing is something beyond TBX format. TBX is, the term-based exchange format. It's a type of XML document, and that's definitely a step in the right direction. It's a good thing to have. For example, I went from termbases.eu. I exported my term base here from TBX, and I was able to import it into a multi-term term base and use it in a Trados project. And so, TBX is nice, but you still have to convert from TBX in order to use in a CAT tool. And so I think further standardization is needed, mostly on the part of authoring tools and computer-aided translation tools. And so what I would say the future, an ideal future would hold, is that all of these different CAT tools, whether they're web-based or they're desktop software like Trados or MemoQ or whatever the CAT tool might be, they need to standardize and implement the same term-based integration API. And that way we'll have better seamless integration between the tools where we need to author and translate and the tools where we store and maintain our term bases. And I don't know if that will happen. It's more of a hope than a prediction. Thank you for your time. I appreciate being able to present at this conference, and I'd love to hear from you if you have things that you think I was wrong about or things that you thought that I missed. Thank you.
Perfect. Very interesting presentation there. It's something that I work with on a regular basis. I interact with glossaries and translation memories that clients seem to mess up on a regular basis. So it's definitely something close to my heart. Unfortunately, like I said, Devin isn't here with us today. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to reach out to him. He's always available for questions, and he would love to hear your opinions or thoughts on that. If you have any, I would like to correct myself. I did say Utah State University, but he is, of course, an associate professor at Utah Valley University. I'm sure he'll be letting me know about that later on today. But we now move on to our second presentation of the day, and it's a collaboration between students, former alumni from Wake Forest University and the University of Connecticut. And it is titled Emotion Recognition of Cross-Cultural Stickers. I'm very interested to see what the presentation has to say about that in today's world of emojis and memes and communication through imagery rather than text. So very interested to see what this presentation has in store for us. So without further ado, I'd like to pass on to the presenters of this presentation, Dong Dong Yan, Lara Lobato, Peter Ma, Mei-Ling Yu, Tong Tong Xu, and Han Wang.
Okay, great, thank you. I just want to check, and everyone see the PowerPoint screen? Okay, wonderful. Well,
Perfect.
welcome everyone. So everyone, welcome to the presentation today. My name is Laura Lobato. I'm a PhD student at the University of Connecticut in the Communication Department. I'm joined here by Dong Dong Young, a PhD candidate at the University of Connecticut's Communication Department also, and a Wake Forest alum. So the title of our presentation is Emotion Recognition of Cross-Cultural Stickers. So welcome to the emotional world of virtual stickers. Here's an overview of what we'll be discussing today. First, we'll start with an introduction to stickers, followed by emotion recognition, our studies method, and finally, we'll wrap up with the implications and future directions for research. So first, we wanted to start with a poll and ask all of you, how often do you use mobile messaging? Feel free to answer in the chat. You can use A, B, C, D, E, or F. And we'll give you a few moments to enter your response. Okay, great. Thank you so much for your input on that question. I see that we've got 2 answering F, 2 answering E, 1 B, and 1 D. So at least there aren't anyone answering A, so everyone's at least somewhat familiar with mobile messaging and might use it quite frequently. So the topic of our research focuses on mobile messaging and more specifically the use of new graphics in messaging. So let's first start by introducing the subject of our research, virtual stickers. So emoticons, which you see on the left, are nonverbal graphical icons created by typographical marks such as letters, numbers, and punctuation that represent feelings or emotions. Emojis were introduced as a Japanese word that starts with E for picture and moji for characters, and they were used on Japanese electronic messages and web pages, and over 1,000 emojis have made their way into the Unicode. When it comes to the use of emoticons, previous research has shown such intercultural differences that people within individualistic cultures such as the US favor horizontal, mouth-oriented emoticons, like the ones that you see here in the first column, while those within collectivistic cultures such as South Korea favor vertical and eye-oriented emoticons, such as you see here in the red box. While vertical emoticons rely mainly on the shape of the eyes to express emotions, horizontal ones mainly depend on the shape of the mouth for the same purpose. Emojis are a more advanced new generation of emoticons that you can see here in the middle column. They are simple icon-style emoticons, originally only in the form of small illustrations of a person's face, but now represent a wider range of concepts such as people, animals, nature, food and drink, travel and places, and activities. Stickers, which you see in the far right column, are oversized, animated, or static colored images that are organized in tabs and personalized collections that not only represent a sender's emotions, but also the emotional context, social situation, social relationship, attitudes and emotions, and opinions. First introduced in Japan, stickers are gaining popularity, and instant messaging applications such as Facebook Messenger, Skype, WeChat, Line have integrated a large number of stickers for use. All three types of expressions were developed to enrich communication and compensate for the lack of social presence in mobile messaging. Stickers allow users to reply with an emotional response across any distance, even without words, simply by sending a sticker. As mobile messaging becomes a part of daily life for young people, graphical icons such as virtual stickers are more widely used around the globe. While text-only messages lack the nonverbal emotional cues that are present in face-to-face interaction, graphical icons such as virtual stickers allow for paralinguistic cues to be sent in asynchronous, computer-mediated communication to overcome the lack of emotional expression in texting when not present in person. So we have a second poll for you. For those of you who do use mobile messaging in general, we're wondering, how often do you use stickers in mobile messaging? Feel free to use the chat to indicate A, B, C, D, E, or F. We'll give you a few moments to put in your response. Okay, great. I see that 2 of you have marked never. 2 say sometimes. 1 says often. So I see there's a range of experience with stickers, so hopefully everyone will enjoy learning more about these graphical icons. Our upcoming study explores how stickers are used for emotional, nonverbal, asynchronous communication in mobile messaging. For our study, we'll focus on the 6 basic emotions, which are anger, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, and surprise. In this research, stickers function as examples of nonverbal channels, which have been shown to have higher cross-cultural agreement than emotions conveyed by voice. So for our last poll, we wanted to see what you think of a couple examples of graphical expressions. For this first one, what do you think this one expresses? Feel free to type in the chat. And we'll give you a few minutes to input your response. Great, thank you. I see that we have joy, surprise, happy, saying hello, yay. Yeah, so there's a general consensus that it's a happy type of emotion being expressed. So how about for the second one? What do you think this expresses? Feel free to enter in the chat. Okay, great. So we have hope, prayer, blessed, prayer hands, hopefulness. We have some ambiguity about what it actually means. We have gratitude, prayer, and thanks. Okay, wonderful. So for this last one, what do you think this sticker expresses? Feel free to enter in the chat and we'll give you a few moments to enter your response. Okay, great. So we have shock, we have wistfulness, distraction, surprise. So a little bit more of variety in what label you would put on that sticker. So thank you so much for your input on all of those questions. From that poll, we can see that the different types of graphical stickers are used to express emotion, and that the interpretations of the emotions can vary. So likewise, the similarity and dissimilarity in emotion recognition across cultures has been shown in earlier cross-cultural emotion studies that have not used stickers as a medium. Happiness, as an example, has been found to have a high level of agreement, while fear has been found to have more disagreement. Next, Dongdong will introduce the findings of our recent study, which forms the groundwork for our future research on stickers. Then she will outline our upcoming study's method, implications, and directions for future research.
Thanks, Laura, for the introduction of study background. So in November 2021, Laura and I conducted a study investigating how Chinese and US university students interpret the emotions expressed by stickers from Chinese and US social media differently. We found that US participants in general perform better in recognizing most of the stickers' emotions. An in-group advantage in the recognition of anger, sadness, and surprise exists for US participants. Here, in-group advantage means that participants interpreted the stickers from their own country's social media more accurately, which is not surprising. Similarly, the Chinese participants display an in-group advantage in the recognition of happiness. These findings relate to the specificity of emotion expression of different cultures we previously discussed. In addition, US participants are more likely to recognize disgust, while Chinese participants can more easily interpret fear, no matter where the stickers come from. This is about the universality of emotion expression. Notably, disagreement on disgust, fear, and surprise is higher than 50%, indicating the challenges of expressing such emotions non-verbally in mobile messaging. So I'll give you a few examples of how stickers' emotions can be open to interpretation. Take a look at the first sticker. Is it fear or surprise? Then the second and third. Are they the same? Are they expressing the same emotions? The fourth one, is it communicating sadness or disgust? In addition to the cross-cultural differences in emotion recognition, we also wonder individual differences in emotion recognition in stickers. So we are proposing the upcoming study. For this study, there are 4 types of predictors we are going to look at. First, cultural-related factors. Previous intercultural experience and intercultural communication competence will be examined. According to intergroup contact theory, being exposed to different cultures can effectively reduce prejudice and facilitate mutual understanding between majority and minority group members. So the first hypothesis of our study is previous intercultural experience is possibly related to emotion recognition accuracy in cross-cultural stickers. Also, we posit that intercultural communication competence will be possibly connected with emotion recognition accuracy in cross-cultural stickers. Second, technology-related factors. Sticker use, social media use will be investigated as predictors. According to social learning theory, individuals learn from observing the experience of others. Because stickers are a product of technology advancement, people who use social media and stickers more often tend to better understand how they work and how emotions are customarily expressed in stickers. So we predict that sticker use and social media use frequencies are possibly associated with emotion recognition accuracy. The third category is emotion-related factors. Expressive suppression involves reducing facial expression and controlling the expression of emotions. In many cultures, the social norm is that people don't want to express certain emotions in public. So we propose that people who tend to suppress their emotions will have lower emotion recognition accuracy. They're just not proficient or good at expressing and interpreting emotions in this case. On the other hand,
I wanted to interrupt briefly just to say you've got about 2 minutes left.
empathy refers to the ability to take others' perspective and understand their feelings. So obviously, people who are more empathetic should be able to better interpret the emotions expressed in the stickers. And fourth, the personality traits will also be explored as predictors. For example, people who score higher on neuroticism are more sensitive to others' judgment, so they will pay close attention to others' emotions and enjoy a higher emotion recognition accuracy. So here we come to the method of our study. The population is US college students, obviously, and we'll draw a purposive as well as convenient sample from UConn students. Hopefully we can have more than 300 participants. As we said, the independent variable will be the predictors, and the dependent variable will be the accuracy of emotion recognition in stickers. And the control variables will be gender, age, and ethnicity. We'll conduct our analysis on SPSS using multiple regression models. Finally, I'll cover the implications of emotion recognition in stickers and the future directions for research. This study will facilitate understanding and reduce miscommunication in technology-mediated intercultural communication. Imagine when you constantly misinterpret another person's stickers. It's easy for you to feel awkward and frustrated and less motivated to continue intercultural communication. Second, the study will inform mobile messaging app providers of sticker design global products. Since some emotions are more difficult to interpret, designers may want to add words or context to the stickers in order to reduce misunderstanding. In the future, we want to study how animated stickers impact emotion recognition, or animated and the static stickers interpreted differently. What predicts that interpretation? Some stickers are more complicated in design, and how does this affect emotion interpretation? So that's all for our presentation. Thank you for watching. My name is Dongnong Yang, and the other presenter is Laura Lobato. We are PhD students in the Department of Communication at the University of Connecticut. Thank you again for attending this presentation, and we are taking questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that presentation. And I guess I'll open it up to the floor just in case anybody has any questions for the presenters. I had one quick question for the both of you, and I guess as you're talking about the increase in the use of stickers and these other types of communication that are not verbal, do you see a future where there are messages that are purely stickers or other types of imagery where there is no text involved at all, like a whole conversation, for example? Do you think there's a future where that is the norm between, let's say, the youth and then also the older generation as well?
I don't know about in general. I can tell you that I've had that happen in conversations, exactly what you're talking about, but in very small snippets. So there'll be one sticker, a sticker in reaction, a sticker in reaction to that, and a sticker, but maybe like 4, maybe 5 max, but not beyond that without words being in the middle. So I've seen it happening on a very limited basis. I wonder if that were to become the norm, as you're asking. I'm just wondering if that would be increasing the misunderstandings that could happen because there isn't agreement on all of the stickers.
That was my follow-up point to that is that, as we've seen, as you've shown, there can be some disagreement, even mildly, between the nuances of difference between any given stickers. So like you say, a snippet of a conversation might be able to happen, but a whole conversation just with stickers might lead to some miscommunication or misunderstandings throughout the conversation.
Thank you so much for your question.
No, thank you so much. And I guess I think it's now time to move on, but thank you very much. And again, please feel free to reach out to the presenters should you have any questions or anything you'd like to ask them. We now move on to another presentation, and we have both Jose Salinas and Peter Ma, who both have studied at Wake Forest University, as is the general theme for today's presentations. And their presentation's title is a little bit different from the title that is on the program. And their title is Designing a Survey for LEP Patients for Interpreters in Family and Community Care. So without further ado, I'll pass over the mic to the two gentlemen.
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity of presenting our the earliest stages of our ongoing research project. So Peter, you can.
Yes. Our topic is designing a survey for LEP patients for interpreting in family and community care. LEP stands for Limited English Proficiency. So originally, our ideas started in a linguistic class, and it's the discourse analysis. Our ideas was to use discourse analysis to analyze patients' discourse. And one thing led to another. We're trying to incorporate health communication with healthcare interpreting. Okay. So this is structure of our presentation. First, we're gonna introduce our project. Then we'll share some thoughts about the research we have done so far. And then we're gonna explain our interest in using elements from patient-centered communications, PCC for short, in research for healthcare interpreting. Then we're gonna present out the survey we designed, and last we'll talk about future research directions and other remarks. Okay. So a brief introduction of the project. The patient's perspective is very crucial to acquire quality in family and community care. So the context is in the U.S. is a immigrant country. We have a lot of patients with very limited English proficiency. Such medical encounters are mediated by medical or healthcare interpreters. We're going to be introducing a preliminary tool for gathering data from LEP patients. Now, there are many contributions to the field what we are proposing is to adding elements from a patient provide of shifting from provider-centered communication to patient-centered communication in order to create a more holistic approach that includes the patient's perspective. And of course, there's a need for a tool for this study. The tool is a survey that can help researchers to get direct data from a LEP in family and a community healthcare setting.
So that's gonna be the purpose of our presentation, to present this survey and trying to explain our reasoning behind it. However, it will be also important to point out the relevant research that has been done in healthcare communication and healthcare interpreting that is informing our decisions. What we can point out is that it is widely known that research has shown that healthcare quality benefit if the interpreters go beyond the traditional role of conduit of information. And it will be interesting. There are recommendations from shown by research that the quality of healthcare will benefit if interpreters start working in other type of roles in order to create a better environment for communication. And there might be positive outcomes if the interpreters are embracing a more active role in the medical encounter. More research, in other words, current research is emphasizing or stressing the need that there has to be further much deeper collaboration between interpreters, providers, and patients, and to achieve better communicational strategies. So this is what we are seeing right now in the research. There is an emphasis in collaboration and the need to rethink the relationships between providers, patients, and interpreters. So what we find out is that even though there were those achievements in the literature, there were also an interesting gap in which the patient's perspective is still not heavily studied. And it's quite understandable because there are no tools to really out in the field, open in the field, that are able right now to gather what type of information the patients are saying. It's been part of the medical session of the medical encounter that has not been really heavily studied, has not been really taken into consideration. That is why our research question was to trying to understand, so what are the patient's perspective on their interpreters? We're going to study, or we're going to design a research in our language pairs, which was Spanish and Mandarin Chinese. We would like to create this tool that will allow researchers to gather relevant data, and it's something that is heavily informed on the patient-centered communication model. But to talk about patient-centered communication, Peter, you can explain better.
So patient-centered communication is a emerging model. Is not very old of health communication. Compared to patient-centered communication, previously we have paternalistic model, meaning that the doctors acting like parents. They tell the patients what to do. The patients are just listening. They didn't have much voice. They didn't have much, they didn't get too much involved in the decision making in the healthcare process. And other than that, there's consumer model. They see the patients as consumers. So the patients choose treatment as products. Now, the patient-centered communication is a care model that responds to and respect the patient's individual values, their needs, their preferences, their cultures, their health beliefs. As you all know, Chinese patients, Latin American patients, they have very different health beliefs when it comes to healthcare. And in the PCC model of care, providers actually seek patients' perspective and feedback, so the care could address their own unique healthcare needs. So, so that's why we incorporate PCC model in our study. We wanted to obtain first-hand feedback from patients about their experience in the medical encounter and their perception of interpreting and interpreters.
So right now we can, for a matter of time, I think it will be better if we go directly to the survey and we present it. So I will share with you guys the English template of the survey. And is everybody able to see the Word document that I'm sharing in my screen right now? I assume yes. This is a 10 questions, 5-scale Inker survey, and that was following certain criteria that we wanted to do, that we wanted to emphasize. First of all, we wanted to emphasize a really simple, clear criteria, because even though LP patients, they might have experience working with interpreters, they might not have the jargon or the vocabulary, the terminology that is familiar for other interpreters or for healthcare providers. Therefore, what we try to do, and perhaps this is not quite visible in the English version of the survey, in the template, was trying to adapt certain topics about certain themes about medical encounter and certain roles about the medical interpreter into a plain language, and in that case, we allow the LP patient to get the information to express the information that we're trying to get from them. What is the perception, the feeling that is that they have regarding interpreters? We're using this model survey because it's more easy to get attitudes and feelings from people in a 5-point scale. And most importantly, we are not intending to directly measure elements of accuracy of the interpreting, nor we are trying to determine if the interpreters are fitting any role during this, any particular role, like a conduit role, like a mediator role, and everything. Even though the survey mentions of difference, what we're trying to see is how the patients are understanding the person that is interpreting in the session. So one of the things that I wanted to point out for the Spanish version of the survey, and we were talking about this, is how we managed to, or how we were struggling in adapting certain elements from the English template into other languages, considering that this is going to be something that perhaps is going to be filled by LP patients, that they are not highly educated, that they are immigrants, that they are, and we are thinking mostly, of course, in community care or family care, elements in which the feedback of the patient and the cultural background is going to be more important. So one of the things that we were discussing, and I wanted to discuss, call my attention, was the section about when we were asking about advocacy or respect. And it's particularly question number 9 and question number 10 were a little bit challenging for my own translation scenes. Question number 1, the back translation into English will be read as, do you think that the interpreter was on the side of the physician, or the side of the provider? Question number 10 is, would you think that the interpreter was on the side of you, of the patient? And this could be a little bit mislead if this question was asked directly into English, but we consider that actually this way to express it, trying to understand the advocacy role of an interpreter, was more accurate for Spanish-speaking patients, trying to understand that, oh, there is different roles in the session, and do you feel that the role that the interpreter played was more on the provider side than on your own side? So in that way, we can try to understand from more perspective from the patient themselves. For the
Sorry to interrupt just quickly. You've got a couple minutes left, 2.5 minutes left or so.
So I'll very quickly go through the Chinese version. So yes, this is basically a direct translation of the English survey. Yes, I have also run to a couple of issues. For example, about the cultural background, we specifically want to discover, like, is there a correlation between interpreters' cultural competency with the high level of satisfaction from the patients. So what we have in mind is, like, we have different idea of politeness. We have different expectation when we go to the doctors. So that kind of a different expectation could be an origin of conflicts. So that culture is with the Chinese word 文化 it's not exactly the equivalent, but it's the closest we can do. Okay, so
yeah, and then we can get our final remarks. So what we expect is that this introductory survey could provide a roadmap to codify relevant data for patients, and it can be used for other researchers as well. And it's still determined the location, the sample size, how the further interviews and observation will be take place for our own research. And in the future directions, even though this project was developed in the classroom and it was developed because of our language pairs, it is quite obvious that it has to be moved to a different direction. And it could be a research project that is going to be focused mainly in Spanish-speaking LP patients, and another one for Chinese-speaking Chinese-speaking LP patients, because the context and the population that we would like to survey are going to be drastically different. The final considerations we find out is that introducing elements from the patient-centered communication model and in the study in healthcare interpreting could address some of the recommendations done by previous research, in which there is a need for more active collaboration between providers, interpreters, and patients. Community and family care are relevant subdomains to study these changes, to study these implementations, because there is a much active element of collaboration, and there is much interesting to know what are the feedback, the input that patients are going to bring into the medical encounter. So this is, thank you so much for your attention, and this is a little bit of the work literature that we cite in our research. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. I'll open it up to the floor for any questions. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions yourself, or if you'd like to put them in the chat, we can definitely look at those questions in the chat. Professor Burgos, I see you have a question.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Peter and Jose, for this presentation and this very interesting idea. I just have a couple of questions or comments, because I suppose this is a work in progress, right? So I hope any comment from my part is useful if you think it's relevant, of course. My first question is just more like a formal question. If you please share your screen again, and you let us see questions number 10 and number 9 in your English questionnaire, please. And because I think that question, from my perspective, for example, as a participant in your study, I feel like you're trying to make me take one or the other side. You consider the interpreter. Actually, I think you need to. It's number 9 and 10. Number 9 and 10, I guess. Yeah. I think you need to update either one, helping the provider or helping you, I think. Well, but that's a formal thing. But then my actual comment on that is that it seems like with this question, you're letting your participant know what your one of your hypotheses is, right? You're trying to determine if with interpreting, the interpreter is more on the side of the provider or on the side of the client. So you may want to consider, wording this question in a way that doesn't induce your participant to to go towards one or the other, sort of a more open question that you can use to infer that information without making it that explicit to your participant. And so that will be my first observation. And then, of course, I think this is exactly the same question. You need to change provider to yourself or something like that. Well, and then my question is, if you had a chance to take a look to other related works, other surveys. I know of one, and I'll be happy to share with you a survey of patients in terms of how satisfied they are with the interpreters work, and how that work can impact their perception of how useful and efficient the provider was, for example, and many other questions. So I'll be happy to share that with you. But do you have a chance to take a look at other similar surveys? So.
Yeah, we have seen a couple of surveys. There are not a lot of out there. What are the ones we have seen?
Yeah, we are in order to develop our survey, we were looking at other research, other type of surveys that have done that they're out there in the market, and most of the observations that we got from there is that most of them are going to be related to the quality of the service or the level of satisfaction that the patient is going to have from a communicational level, from how much do they feel like the performance of the interpreter was done, or are they going to be, or they will feel like the communication between them and the provider was smooth or was fine. And our observation with that is that it was still considering the element of conduit.
Where we're trying to investigate is about the cultural competency and advocacy. Do they correlate with higher level of satisfaction? That's our question.
Yeah, that is what we are trying to say. We're trying to create another type of survey that could take a grasp of all these other elements that is not related only to the information or communication dimension during the medical encounter, mediated by the interpreter, of course. But of course, yes, this is still a work in progress that needs to be reviewed. It is just that we find out that we were just trying to point that out, that there is this need to create better tools in order to get data that could be relevant for our own research questions.
Right, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. We don't have a huge amount of time left, but Dr. Fasolo, I see that you have your hand raised as well, so if you'd like to ask a question.
Sure, yeah. Could you show question number 1 again?
Scroll in the English section, yeah.
Yeah, English.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, I think that your study it's a good idea to focus on what the patient wants. I do think there are previous studies, like Dr. Burgos mentioned, especially relating to patient satisfaction, that do take their perspective. But let me play devil's advocate and just say, okay, why should we consult the patient? Are they in a position to evaluate the quality of the interpreting, like question number 1 asks?
Mm-hmm.
And to the extent that they are satisfied, could that not be measuring something else? For instance, the fluency of the interpreter or their affability, whether they like them, but not necessarily the quality of the interpreting.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question.
Yes, well, what are we trying to do? Like we trying to use a PCC model, like put patient in the center. We want to invite their participations, invite their feedback. So yeah.
Yeah, but however, it is important to point out what you're mentioning, that we are not trying to create a survey necessary to determine the quality of the
Yeah.
of the interpreter,
Yeah.
or the level of the accuracy of the interpretation, but that question was trying to point that out. It try to correlate if the patient will feel that the quality of the interpreter will be also correlated with the with all the other elements that are taking place in the session, like the cultural awareness, the roles, the positioning which interpreter is trying to say. So we're trying. It is a question that is related to trying to compare with the other questions that we are putting in the survey. It's not necessarily a question that is gonna, as you said, it's not gonna reflect, or it's not gonna be an informed opinion on the quality of the interpreting by itself, because the patients might not be able to determine that quality, and this is not something that we are interested in to measure.
Interpreting quality is not our focus for the study.
Mm-hmm. You just want to see the feeling of the attitude regarding the session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm afraid we're going to have to move on. I see there is a question in the chat, so we can pose the question, and then maybe something you guys can think about, or if, Mariana, if you'd like to contact them directly. But the question from Mariana is, since you are dealing with different speaking populations, have you considered using more iconographic scales? So that might be something that you can look at later. But I'm afraid right now we need to move on. And the next presentation is from the ITS project. And they have a presentation on the translation of a century-old tea book. As a Brit, I'm fully aware of the importance of tea in everyday life, and looking forward to hearing what the presenters are going to be talking about to do with tea. And presenting or collaborating on the presentation today is Madison Campbell, Mariana Valverde Vargas, and Yusha. So take it away.
I'm having trouble starting my video. I'm not sure if you guys want me to have my video on.
Whatever you're most comfortable with. If there's anything for us to look at, that would be great. But whatever works best for you.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't necessarily have to have the video on. I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Share. Can everyone see that?
Yep, that's working perfectly.
Okay, here we go, slideshow. Okay, so good afternoon, and thank you so much for having us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Madison Campbell, and I am acting as the project manager for this ITS project, which, as Peter mentioned, is on the translation of a century-old tea book. There we go. Okay, so the project overview. So the source text is an English language book about the history, origins, and cultural significance of tea. And we are working on translating it into Spanish and Chinese. Our teams consist of graduate students, alumni, and the faculty of the Interpreting and Translation Studies Department here at Wake Forest University. And this is a collaborative effort between the ITS program and the World Tea Association, which is the tea club at Wake Forest University. And the whole idea behind this project is we wanted to have a chance to create something useful and beautiful to share with a broader community of translators or tea enthusiasts. in the spirit of celebrating the 10th anniversary of the ITS program. So just a little bit of information about the source. So we decided to translate this book because it is available in the public domain, having been published in 1903. The original author is Arthur Gray. And as I mentioned, this is a compilation of poetry and prose works regarding tea and everything surrounding tea. The author is a relatively unknown author, which did present some problems for our translators, which we'll address later, mainly, deciphering the author's intentions anytime translation issues came up. And then there were a handful of historical inaccuracies, which again posed some problems for our translators, which we will discuss in a moment. So as I mentioned, for the project teams, I'm acting as project manager, and Dr. Diego Burgos is the project leader. On the Spanish team, we have 3 Spanish translators and 9 Chinese translators. Again, the World Tea Association acted as our consulting team for any tea-related questions. And this project is a semester-long process, which has been divided into 3 deadlines. The first 2 have already been completed, and the third will be completed in April. And our goal is to publish this work with the Library Partners Press in late April or May. And each translation deadline was celebrated with an ITS event. So I'll talk briefly about those. The first event was February 16th. As you can see in this photo here, we featured a traditional gong fu tea brewing ceremony, which is really interesting. And we got to sample some pu'er tea, which is a fermented black tea, which is really delicious. And our translators shared some anecdotes about the translation process. And then at the second event, which was March 16th, we had a matcha tea brewing demonstration. We got to sample some sencha tea, which is a green tea. And our translators held some discussions about certain translation decisions they had made, such as what to do about historical inaccuracies, how do translators balance conflicting responsibilities, and how should style be maintained. And so with that introduction out of the way, Chen Yu is going to take over and talk about the anecdotes and discussion from the Chinese team.
Okay, thank you, Madison. Hello, everyone. My name is Chen Yu. I'm honored to be here to introduce our Chinese team in this little tea book project to all of you and talk about some our translation anecdotes and translation difficulties during the whole process. At the beginning, next slide, please. At the beginning, I want to briefly introduce our team members who are in different regions. Some of us are in China now, and the rest are in the US, including all the current students in ITS program. We also have one special member who can speak Japanese, and he is in charge of translating all the Japanese words in the book, and also he's our style manager. And Dr. Chen is our chief reviewer. She will do the final quality control for each translation text. Through the whole project, we keep friendly and frequent communication with each other through the remote meeting and chat applications. And also through this project, we learn from each other about our different translation styles and skills. And next slide, please. We have 3 batches of translation, and for each batch, we have our internal deadlines to ensure we get time to cope with any emergency case. In each batch, we have different stages. After translators finish their work, there are 2 rounds of review, and Carlo will collect all the files from all the second reviewers and manage the overall style and format of the translation. After that, it will be sent to Dr. Chen for the final quality management for the whole batch. And please next slide. As Madison May mentioned before, this book is highly dense with literature, cultural part, and historical part of the content, including a lot of poems and prose. For this author, as a British, Chinese history and Japanese history part may not be so easy for him to read and write. As a result, some names or terms or quotes in this book sometimes may not be so clear and accurate for us as translators to do research. So next, I will show you 2 examples about how our translators did when they had trouble finding reference or records or literature about some names or terms. Next slide, please. In this paragraph, you can see I have highlighted several names: Yesay, Maki, Togano, and Uzi. If you simply put these names in Google search, you'll find that there is nothing matching exactly same with these names in the source text. So what we did is put these names in the Google search box with some other keywords. Next slide, please. And I put 1200 this year, Japanese, Yesay, and tea, these words in the Google search box. And I got some results about essay. They are pretty close, actually, essay and Yesay, but we have to prove they are the same one before we translate it. So I put essay in the Google search, in the Wikipedia, and I got the result that essay is also credited with the beginning of the tea tradition in Japan by bringing green tea seeds from China back from his second trip in 1191. And this piece of information actually matched well with the original information given in the source text. And what's more important is this time matches well. 1191 is pretty close to 1200. And please, next slide. So at this moment, I can judge that essay is maybe the one we are looking for. So we put the essay, tea, Maki, Japanese, these keywords in the search box, and we got some results about them. And you can see in the bottom screenshot of this picture, later essay gave tea seeds to Meiyo Shonin in Kyoto. These seeds are said to have become basis for UGT after being sold at Togano in Kyoto. So this sentence, you can see all the names and terms we are searching for appear in this sentence. And after that, maybe next slide. After that, we do more research to prove that they are the correct names we are looking for. And also, besides we translate them into the correct names, we also translate Togano Temple into Meiwei Si instead of Tuojiano Si, because we think since it's a Japanese history, we should adopt the Japanese name of this temple. Please, next slide. And the last example is about the case we have trouble finding literature or records, but finally we found that. So here is an example about is the case that we finally find nothing about this Qianlong's poem. So it is from one of our translators named Yu Zhu. She transcreated this piece, and she told me, firstly, she imitated the ancient Chinese classical writing style because this poem was written by Qianlong, who was an emperor about over 100 years ago in China. So she firstly summarized the features of ancient classical Chinese language. It's always concise, shorter than the vernacular language, and often includes a lot of inverted sentence structure. And she do imitate this language style and transcreated this piece. And also the best transcreation part is the last phrase. She transcreated vapor into yingyun, which means both steam from hot water and lasting fragrance from the tea. Besides, this word yingyun is also a word of really high register in Chinese. So it adds extra elegance to this translation as a classical Chinese poem. It's also a really excellent transcreation, which all agreed by the rest translators in our team. So I think that's it about my Chinese team. And thank you, Madison, for playing the slides for me. And next, let's welcome my Spanish alumni, Mariana, to talk about the Spanish team.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Spanish team. Please, next slide. The Spanish team is composed by 3 people. That will be Dr. Diego Burgos, who is a professor, of course, at Wake Forest University. We have Jose, who is currently a student from the master's, and myself, who, well, I graduated last year from the program, and right now I'm currently working as a professor in my home university back in Costa Rica. So we are kind of an international team. I take care of everything that it's related to literature because I already have a master's in literature, and Jose and Diego take care of all the prose. Next slide, please. So I'm going to be talking a little bit of the challenges that I have encountered when I have been, well, that we as a team have encountered when I translate the literary pieces. Now, the first challenge I brought was to keep the rhyme scheme. As you may know, whenever you have a poem, you have to analyze the rhyme scheme, and that's the ending of each line in a verse. So in this case, I had determined that the rhyme scheme, excuse me, is A, A, B, B, C, C, D, D, E, E, F, F. So that should be reproduced in the target text. I know that for some people here who do not speak Spanish, this may seem a little bit weird, but I would like to read the poem so you can actually see how it sounds, because this is a matter of sounds more than just like the words. So allow me 1 second. It says, inmersas en el cuchilleo de todas, mojigatas, coquetas y brujas, cuyas voces se alzan al compás de aquella quien grite más. Se contradicen, discutan y acotan, sin reparo, sin descanso se alborotan, todas ansiosas por hablar como una jauría, donde hasta los perros de compañía se unen al sin igual estruendo, que para este momento, sin ningún rival, el título ostenta de ser la más estruendosa y violenta. Now, in order to make this happen, the rhyme scheme, I had to do 2 things. I had to change the order of many words, but especially in the last 4 lines, I had to change the metaphors, because in the original, we have a metaphor of the fisher wives, and we have about the violence of people being drunk. So I took those 2 characteristics, but what I did was I extended the metaphor of the lap dog barking, and I just included those 2 characteristics into it. So the compensation is done, and like, let's say that the translation loss is not that significant because we still have what was very important about those 2 metaphors. Can we please go to the next slide?
Just to interrupt you briefly, just so you have about 2 minutes left. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Then we have avoiding a problematic term. This is very brief and very straight to the point. In the last stanza of this last poem, we had a good wife, green for your maiden aunts, and we all have cups of tea. Being this book 100 years old or over 100 years old, the use of good wife may turn problematic in this era, especially in Spanish, because some people may take it as an insult, especially with maiden aunts, right? Although back then that was just the reality. So we had 2 options. One was to avoid the whole issue. And I wrote here the back translation, hey, you call your helper so they can drink tea with all of us, which will avoid the issue, and we won't insult anyone, and it won't be that the loss won't be that relevant because we're not talking here about feminism or anything like that. Or we could do something else. Next slide, please. In the second slide, we will see that the back translation will tell us that I use dear wife instead of good wife, just to add a little bit more meaning to it. And I also added the ants and helpers, which I think that it was the meaning of the source text. And of course, I changed it cups of tea for tea time, which is just something to keep the rhyme going on. Well, those are actually the 2 challenges I brought for you today. Madison, next one. And with that, we conclude our presentations. I would like to thank you a lot, so much for your attention, and it has been a pleasure to share our work with all of you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Very interesting presentation on the work that you've all been doing. That leads us to the end of today's session. So I would want to take this moment to thank everybody, thank all the presenters for everything that they brought for us today, and thank everybody that attended as well. And thank you to Wake Forest for hosting, and for the Wake Forest students and for the technical team that made all of this technologically possible. I now leave you in the very capable hands of Dr. Ola Furmanek with some closing remarks. Oh, just before we move on to the closing remarks, does anybody have any quick questions for the ITS team? If nobody has any questions, I did have a quick question that I wrote down that I wanted to ask about whether there were any problems with the culture involved around tea, and whether there were any difficulties with the translation in terms of translating cultural aspects and elements that vary from cultures to cultures, and so the language also there might be gaps in the semantic fields for a language when dealing with cultural differences with teas.
Who would like to take that question? Mariana?
Well,
go ahead.
I don't know if Chen Yu wants to answer.
Yeah, because actually I have an example about this culture, like really difficult to translate related to culture. I remember it's a review work for me, and from the translator's notes, I noticed she asked whether this term is translated correctly, and it's about a tea party related term in Japanese. And actually, maybe all of us, maybe that, I mean, the Chinese translators, all of the Chinese translators, we do not have really good basis about Japanese words. Maybe we just have a really brief and a shallow understanding of Japanese words. So we do have difficulty translating that term related to tea party and tea ceremony and some like tea costumes in Japan. So we have a discussion about these words and do a lot of research, including asking some my classmates before who know well about Japanese. And after that, I decided to choose a like more general word of that term to include this specific tea ceremony word. So that's one of our strategies to deal with such situation.
Okay, everybody. Right. Well, I think we're ready to move on as our great chair today, Peter, said, we're ready to move on to our closing remarks with the co-chair of the conference, Dr. Furmanek. Thank you, Peter. Again, thank you all for your great presentations today. Thank you to all the organizing committee. Great job. Dr. Furmanek, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Burgos. And we are ready to have the closing remarks for this beautiful conference. So, hello again for the last time today. And we have had beautiful, diverse presentations. And this last presentation was the crowning of celebration of our 10th anniversary, as well as the 10th anniversary of the entire forum. We have seen presentations covering philosophical concepts, subtitling, poetry, political discourse, translanguaging, education, transcreation, diverse, beautiful, well-prepared, well-presented. We are so pleased. It does seem like the emerging overarching theme here is to rewrite the definition of equivalence, our old friend, right, that is being challenged here, reapproached, or even the entire concept of translation, as we have seen. Translation as the activity, or translating as the process, and interpreting. We see some new ideas, cross-continental ideas that look at the definition of translation per se from a new angle. It seems to me, I don't know if you have had a similar impression across the sessions, that we as interpreters and translators and intercultural experts are actually taking more ownership of our work. Don't you think? Like reflecting not only on the texts or discourses that we are working with and their context, but also how we are doing it, right? So almost like the mission that we have, right? Where we are as the professionals in this entire process. I am thinking about defining our identity more as creators, maybe the visibility, for example, of literary translators and subtitlers, as well as being really active players, right? So we are coming more to the front of the activity as the experts in those language and societal and political, ideological and cultural matters, coming more to the front of the activity, not being those old gray eminences behind the scene or on the backstage. To me, it seemed like an overarching theme of the entire forum was more freedom, maybe, more awareness, more flexibility, that we are more willing to expand our boundaries a little bit, and expanding not only the boundaries of understanding, but actually of acting or effectuating it in a certain way, and new paradigms that are emerging as well. I just wanted to make a very short marginal remark because it all makes sense to me. A couple of years ago, with my colleague Rebecca Tipton from the University of Manchester, we have proposed the term of fusion interpreting, where the interpreter's flexibility, combining different roles, is emphasized. So like multi-role, more in-depth and more like expanding, not just one particular aspect. And maybe we can have fusion translation as well, right? So like we have seen with Dr. Lee, who was talking about the flying birds movement or pouring the liquid. So there's more flexibility, more fluidity overall. Our keynotes presenters, I'm sure you have noticed, or maybe you have been thinking about it already. They have emphasized that, both of them, exactly. Anthony Pym, as he stated, we should take more risks, so more freedom, more flexibility. We should be more aware of our choices and being able to justify those choices. And the second keynote presenter today, he was talking about more freedom that is rooted in the history of translation. So looking at the evolution and claiming more freedom for ourselves. So maybe reshaping, more compromises, reevaluating our priorities as far as decisions making, as far as translators, such interpreters. Those are my thoughts. So I don't know, maybe you have different thoughts, but to me, those are the emerging and overarching and the leading themes throughout the entire forum. So this is in terms of our knowledge advancement. So I hope we have seen that in the forum. Now, some statistics, very important as well, right? We want to know what has been happening. So we had 200 people registered for the conference. But in addition, another over 100 people were watching us on Bilibili and OU. I believe that's the second platform in Chinese, and YouTube. So overall, we have had 300 people, which is a great success, especially for, as Professor Luo said, the conference that is just being revitalized. So over 300 people, or maybe even close to 400 people from all continents. All continents we have seen from every single of the 5 or 6, maybe from Antarctica as well. No, just 5 continents. So I would like very much to express my gratitude on behalf of Professor Xuanmin Luo and myself. I would like to thank Wake Forest University, Guangxi University, and Tsinghua University for making this forum possible. We appreciate our both speakers as well, who so enthusiastically have pushed our boundaries of understanding and maybe opened new horizons for us. But I would like most of all to thank all of you, the participants, for sharing your research, your discoveries, for sharing your hopes for your future discoveries. We did it together, right? We are advancing the knowledge of translation studies and interpreting studies all over the world along similar lines, together, working hard and thinking, what can be done better as far as intercultural communication, what can be done more in depth, what can be done more solidly. And I would like to thank now our organizing team. I was wondering if you can turn on not just the speaker view, but maybe so that we can see all of us. Maybe if you would like to do that, because I still see Dr. Burgos here as the main one, so I'm going to change to gallery view. So I don't know if you all have us in gallery view. Gallery view, okay, hello everybody in the gallery view. So we have worked hard to ensure that this was truly a trans-Pacific and transatlantic conference, right? So, so many simultaneous platforms and everything was happening at the same time. My thanks and the thanks from Professor Luo go first of all to our 2 co-chairs, Dr. Chao-Wei Zhu and Dr. Yan Chen, for their efforts, for their energy. Can you wave, maybe, Dr. Chen? Yes, I'm not sure Dr. Zhu is here. Dr. Zhu started this idea, and he had the idea to actually organize this conference. So he's the initial person behind it, the inspirator or instigator, and Dr. Chen basically did everything. So we have to thank her for everything. Communication, research, scholarship, evaluations, finding people for evaluations, and making sure everybody communicates well, everything from the technical part. So definitely we do thank so much. Yes, Dr. Chen, we have not been able to do it without you. So great heart. I felt well, thanks to you. I would like to thank also Dr. Diego Burgos, the Associate Director of the Interpreting and Translation Studies Program. Like we are doing it together, not just second in command, probably first in command sometimes for the program. So truly appreciate it. I would like to thank all the evaluators for our 2 awards that we will be talking about in the moment. And I would like to thank our most professional and always ready to help team. Tyler Pruitt, I hope you can turn on your, I don't know if Tyler is in, or Tyler is in the other session. So Tyler Pruitt and Jayu Gao, yeah, thank you so much. Right, yeah, thank you, Jayu and Tyler, not sleeping for the last week at all, helping greatly and always ready and always. So Tyler and Jayu, definitely the most important people for all simultaneous streaming on 3 different platforms in 3 different continents, or 4 or 5. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. And we would like to thank also the university team led by Bing Shi from the Guangxi University. Thank you very much for making that possible with Bilibili, with so many viewers, making the restreaming there possible. Guangxi University, great partner, maybe even better than we did, because we have had so many more viewers on Bilibili. So definitely acknowledging you and thanking you so much. Great work, Bing, and great collaboration, great partnership. Thank you very much. So with that note, I hope that I haven't forgotten anybody. If not, thanks go to all of you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Yan Chen, who will be announcing an important part of this conference, of this forum, which are 2 awards that we are granting. One is for the Rising Scholar in Interpreting and Translation Studies, and the second one is for the Student Award. So please, Dr. Chen, we are all looking forward to the names that we'll hear, because this also has some monetary remuneration, not just acknowledgement and the certification, but the certificate, the diploma. Dr. Chen, please.
Thank you, Dr. Furmanek, for your appreciations and kind words. And hello, everyone. To those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Chen Xijingyan. Chen is my last name. I'm an assistant teaching professor at the Interpreting and Translation Studies program at Wake Forest University. I'm also one of the co-chairs, as Dr. Furmanek mentioned, of the 9th APFTIS conference. So I am very excited to announce the results of the winners. But first of all, I want to say that the number of quality of submissions received this year were exceptionally high. I'm not just saying this for courtesy, this is actually the case. The selection process was really difficult. They were really, really close. But we were finally able to make the decision by the academic committee, organizing committee, and 3 external reviewers due to conflict of interest considerations. And for the first award, which is ITS Rising Scholars Awards, they are for academic faculty in first 5 years of their careers. And we grant 2 awards for $300 together with a certificate. And the winners are, drum roll please, the first winner is Dr. Zhang Shuyin from the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen. And her topic is to bridge the gap between every tower and industry, a case study exploring the skill enterprise cooperation and translator training. And the second winner is Dr. Devin Gilbert from Utah Valley University, and his topic is solving terminology management pain points, one term-based management system to rule them all. Congratulations to Dr. Zhang and Dr. Gilbert. And next, I'll move on to the second award, Best Student Paper Award. And this is for undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral students majoring in translation and interpreting, intercultural studies, and or other relevant studies. We also select 2 abstracts of excellence and accompanied by $300 together with a certificate also. And the winners are Ali Saeed from Kent State University, and his presentation is on reference translation competence model for the Middle East and North Africa's language service providers segment, aligning expectations and requirements. And our second winner for this category is Ms. Shen Lin from Beijing Foreign Studies University, and she talks about beyond a static and subjective view of how diplomatic translators construct China's identity and intercultural communication. So congratulations to the 4 winners of the 2 awards. As you know, we are recording this, and this is also live streamed. So if the winners, probably some of them are not here due to time difference. So they will be able to see the results on our website, also on the recordings. We will also be in touch with the winners regarding their awards and certificate. Thank you so much, everyone.
Ali has come in. Ali,
yeah.
The winner, yeah. So
congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
I had so much fun, and it was a great conference.
Great, yeah, well deserved, well deserved. Anybody else who has received the award that is here that you can see? Just Ali that came in. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Chen. And it is true that actually we have had so many student submissions, more than like rising scholars. So this is promising for the future. So just people in their last years of their doctorates, and I know some in here are thinking about the PhD as well. Our chair of the last ITS, right, Peter? Okay, another rising star, maybe another scholar. All right, great. Thank you very much. As Professor Luo said in his report, we do truly hope that this is the new beginning, that this is the revival of the forum again. And with this hopeful message, I would like to close the 9th Asian Pacific Forum on Translation and Intercultural Studies. Thank you so much. It was great. And another announcement. The next forum. Where do you think it's going to be? The next forum. We are so intergalactic, I guess. The next forum. Where is it going to be? Around the world. Any guesses, Dr. Burgas?
I think we're going to Iceland.
Iceland? No,
Yeah.
no, I wish for beautiful glaciers. No, another guess. I will take another guess. Not Iceland. Another guess. Where is the next forum? Definitely not in the Americas, but in a different place. Asian Pacific. Maybe this will give you a hint. Anybody? One more guess? Nobody? No more guesses? All right. The next, the 10th forum, Asian Pacific Forum on Translation and Intercultural Studies, will take place December of this year, 2022, in Australia. In Australia at the University of New South Wales. So we pass the baton to Australia, University of New South Wales, a great research university as far as interpreting and translation studies. And we are so glad and thrilled that this is starting again and new. So that's all for today. And I hope we will stay in touch as far as collaboration, sharing our research further on, and let's see if we can meet in person in Australia, in New South Wales in December, or for the 11th forum. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day. Have a great night, a great evening, depending where you are. See you soon, somewhere in the world. Bye-bye. Greetings from Wake Forest in North Carolina. Bye-bye. Thank you.